really excited to be doing this. There's so much, we're all struggling so much with trying to stay healthy through everything that's going on. And the first thing that we do is reach for those foods that aren't necessarily so good for us. And it all has an impact. And it doesn't mean that we can't enjoy some of our favorite foods, right? But not necessarily too much of it all the time. So today I will be talking, I have been talking about food being either a poison or medicine. And that's certainly been my experience and the experience of my clients when they start to change what they're eating and some other lifestyle habits, but primarily eating. They see a huge change in their overall health and mental health. Digestive health, often their digestion is affected as well. So I started this session, the first session, with food, what is real food and what is poison, how it affects us. And then I talked about the importance of having a healthy gut, because a healthy gut gives us also a healthy brain. And again, the foods are the biggest component of how our gut is going to be, if it's going to be healthy or not, and some of the other things. So today I'm going to be talking about the toxins that we are exposed to these days that we've never been exposed to in the past. In the last 100 years, I would say, more so in the last 50, industrialized farming and manufacturing and a wide and new technologies are all having a significant impact on our bodies and on our brain. And some of them we don't even think about. So that's what I'm going to really be talking about today, our exposure to the toxins, why that's detrimental, and how we can correct that with primarily food and some other supplements or herbs that will help to heal as well. And some really simple tools to start to detoxify and cleanse, because not everything has to be expensive or complicated. It can be stuff we can incorporate into our daily living. So we know that food is being compromised now because of the industrialized farming. They only put in something like 4 fertilizers back into the soil, and we really need, I believe it's something like 50 different vitamins and minerals to have a very healthy fruit and vegetable. At one time, a bowl of spinach was loaded with iron and lots of other great vitamins. And now you would have to have the equivalent of 50 bowls of that spinach to have the equivalent amount. So our soil has been really depleted. You add on top all of the chemicals and sprays that they put on there. So that's, and you know, we have to eat. So we really have to be thinking about what we're eating. I really encourage people to go to farmers markets if they can, because we have great farmers locally who are growing some really good nutrient dense foods. And of course our water has been seriously compromised, and a lot of the medications, you know, if you think about it, they go into water and they're not always cleaned out and filtered out the way we think they are. I have a friend who actually runs the water testing lab in North Bay, and she tells me that there's way more in that water than we know there is. So if we can have filtered water, drink filtered water instead of the water at the tap, or at the very least with the chlorine, let your water sit for a while, to 24 hours, I think it is, the chlorine will evaporate. And even our rain, of course, is loaded with toxins, because the chemicals that are in the air that have been sprayed over the years that we've been exposed to, they don't go away. They just get recycled around the globe with all the winds and rain. So we are always exposed to these toxins. Before I forget, I'm going to just put up my chat box so that I can see chats if they come up. There we go. Of course, our other way of being exposed to toxins is through our skin. That's our largest organ, and we use cosmetics, lotions, shampoos, all sorts of different things on our skin. That goes into our bloodstream. When it goes into our bloodstream, then it goes into our gut and our brain. So that will definitely have some compromising issues with our health. and all of the household cleaners that we use, even the things like aerosol sprays, or I see people using scented candles or plug-ins, and those are full of chemicals, and we don't think about that when we're breathing in different perfumes and smells like that. It's actually going directly to our brain. It goes into our sinuses and right into our brain. Cigarettes, of course, are toxic, not just for the person smoking, but the person who's in the same room. And vaping is a new thing, and we really don't know long-term how that's going to affect the person vaping and the people around them. Coffee and alcohol in excess, of course, are toxic, and medications, prescription medications, and of course, we need to take those. They can be life-saving, but they do have an impact. So we need to counter that with some detoxifying and some cleansing methods that I'll be talking to you about. We have mercury fillings that also have lead, and our brain loves mercury. So a filling that we had 20 years ago is still releasing toxins into our brain. And of course, we have emissions from cars, planes, industries, and I guess right now, not so much from the planes because not a lot of people are traveling. But once again, those are toxins that are always in the air, and they're not going away tomorrow. So we have to deal with it. There's some things we can avoid, and there's some things we can't, right? So we do the best that we can. Science has linked environmental toxins to over 60 chronic degenerative diseases and health challenges, and that's not a surprise. There's a lot of countries who have banned many different chemicals, some of which we use to spray our crops with. So we really need to be conscious of that. Babies now, they've checked the umbilical cords, the blood in the umbilical cords, and some babies have as much as 200 chemicals found in their bloodstream. So they're born with lots of chemicals. Two new two new detrimental effects that are affecting our brain are now EMF. Some people are familiar with it, some aren't, but it comes from electronics and dirty electricity. The high towers emit certain frequencies that affect our brain. Our cell phones, of course, we know that. We can use headsets instead of having our phone, or speaker instead of having our phone right to our ear. In some countries, cell phone is illegal for a child under the age of 12 to have, because they've recognized that young brains are more affected by cell phones than adults, because their brains are still changing. So they are affected much more so than adults. And just information overload. Who isn't overloaded these days with being on the computer and getting tons of emails and having to, just the stress of having to respond to those emails. And Zoom, here we are on Zoom. I have never been on more Zoom meetings in my life, or on the computer more in my life. And there, 3 to 5% of people are super sensitive to the EMF that comes from laptops and cell phones. I'm actually one of them, and I use grounding pads and different things to help to alleviate that. But I still feel it. I have to take breaks from the electronics because I start to feel nauseous and sick and just not very well. One of the big poisons that we've kind of forgotten about is aspartame, and it is very detrimental to the brain. It loves to go to the brain and damage the brain. It breaks down into formaldehyde, which our body doesn't know what to do with, and it's stored in our brain. It's known to cause blindness, or at least vision loss, or some impairment. Central nervous, there's lots of different things that aspartame does, but it loves to damage our brain. And we forget about certain things like chewing gum. Sugar-free chewing gum is loaded. Each little piece is anywhere from 8 to 10 grams of aspartame. And it doesn't seem like much, but it is. The flavored vitamin waters and anything that is low sugar or diet-free is going to be loaded with aspartame. And it's something that we really need to get out of our diets. The diabetics and type 1 and type 2 diabetics started using aspartame as an alternative before they knew that it was actually not very healthy for them. And it actually doubled their risks in lots of the health risks they already had, blindness being one of them. So I have a friend who is type 2 diabetic, and he has been trying to get off of diet pop because he's been doing it forever, and he is really having a hard time. But in a very short period of time, he's starting to feel a lot better. His brain is functioning better, and his weight is actually starting to go down to something that he was really struggling with. An interesting thing that our body does when we become really loaded with toxins is that it stores it in our fat tissue. And it's a way to protect our organs and systems so that the toxins aren't going all over the place. The problem is that over time, when we have had too much exposure to toxins, and where the body doesn't know what to do with the toxins anymore, now it's going to start to go into our organs and systems, our brain. And then we want to diet. We want to go on diets, or we want to exercise really hardcore to try to lose that weight, but we don't understand that it's the toxins that are causing us to gain weight, not necessarily the foods we're eating, although that's a small part of it. I mean, how many times have I heard people say, but I don't eat a lot. Why can I not lose weight? But very often they're not eating a lot of the good foods, or they're just using or exposed to a lot of toxins that over time they have built up and don't realize that if they were to detoxify, do a really good cleanse and maintain that in their life, that they would just lose weight naturally. I experienced that myself. Being menopausal, I was starting to gain this weight around my waist, and I eat quite well, and I couldn't figure out why I was still not able to lose that weight. So I decided to try intermittent fasting, and that was the clincher for me. And I did lose the weight and continued to keep those few, I think it was 10, 15 pounds, which isn't a lot, but it's 10, 15 pounds I couldn't lose. And now with maintaining intermittent fasting in my lifestyle, I don't have an issue with that anymore. So we tried to cut our calories down, and we exercise like crazy. And all that does is it takes the toxins in our body and puts it into a leaner body, because we can lose weight doing that, but it's not going to, the toxins haven't gone away. We've lost the fat, but the toxins are still there. And if we lose enough fat in our diet and our bodies, now those toxins are going to go into our brain, into our organs, into our joints, all over the place, because it has nowhere to go anymore. And then we are still accumulating toxins, and our body starts to produce fat again because we fall off the diets, we stop exercising, and then we put the weight back on, and it's always because of the toxins. So if we do a detoxing protocol and cleansing protocols on a regular basis, and they don't have to be crazy, we can lose weight quite naturally. So yes, as I was just saying, the more toxins we accumulate over time, it has to go into our brains and organs and systems. It just runs out of places to go. The great news is that when we are following protocols to detoxify and cleanse, simple daily things, lots of great things happen. We start to improve our mental health, more focused, better moods, hormonally, our hormones balance out better. A lot of health issues start to go away. We lose weight, of course, naturally. Food cravings go away. We start to gain muscle mass and lose fat. There's a variety of different things that happen. And yes, we start to reverse premature aging, which isn't a problem for the students at this point, but it is for me. I want to be as healthy and feel as young and healthy as I can for as long as I can. So that's great news, because that means that we have tools and ways of reversing some of the conditions that we may be starting to experience. So there's a number of different ways that we release toxins or eliminate toxins: through our breath, sweating, urine, and through our bowels, through our feces. And if we are chronically constipated, that means that we are not going to be able to absorb the nutrients that we want and need. Our small colon is lined with these little eyes, like little hairs. And as the food is going through, it's picking up the nutrients. But if our small intestine wall and colon wall are all congested and blocked, we're not getting the nutrients. So I was actually experiencing that years ago, where I was eating really super well, but I was malnourished because my body wasn't absorbing the nutrients, because I had been chronically constipated. I had IBS and a number of issues for years. And I didn't realize that that was affecting my ability to absorb nutrients. So don't bother taking vitamins. It's a waste to take vitamins until the colon is clean and is cleansed and is now able to absorb the nutrients from the food. We're not going to be healthy. And of course, it's a place to, our colon, if it's congested, is a great place for parasites and yeast and bacteria, viruses. That's when we start to get candida and all sorts of things like that. So probiotics is always highly beneficial for that. And dehydration, number one cause of constipation. In my case, I had some other issues going on as well, but definitely I was dehydrated. I drank probably 10 cups of coffee a day and not any water. And for every cup of coffee that you drink, you have to drink pretty much a liter of water to rehydrate, which I, of course, didn't know. There are a lot of great foods. And before I go any further, I did want to say that the handouts you'll be receiving, Mike is going to be sending those out tomorrow. All of this information is, I've elaborated on much more. I just can't cover all of the information in the short period of time that we do this in 30 minutes. So, and I want to allow for time at the end for questions. So anything that's here is much more elaborated on in the handouts. So there are a variety of herbs and foods that are highly beneficial for the brain and the digestive system. Greens, leafy greens are phenomenal for detoxifying. So whether that's salads or shakes, juice, that's really, really beneficial. Parsley in particular is also very good for cleansing. Ginger and turmeric are really good for inflammation. And that means inflammation of the brain and the digestive system. Whenever I'm talking about the brain or the body, they're interconnected. So it's both. Wild blueberries are really high in antioxidants, and they do have to be wild blueberries because they have a lot more antioxidants than the regular blueberries. Chlorella and cilantro and spirulina have been used a lot to detoxify the brain, especially the heavy metals from the brain. And there's different protocols you can use. Chlorella can be purchased in little capsules or powder form that you can have in, again, you can have it in shakes. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it. And I brought up the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. I think it was in the first session. And I had brought it up because these are fruits and vegetables that the Dirty Dozen are the top 12 fruits and vegetables that are very, very heavily sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. And so if you can, be purchased organic. And then the Clean 15 are those produce that are not sprayed. And that means that you can purchase them without worrying about them being heavily sprayed. And you can just wash them off and you don't have to worry about the toxins on them. So you don't have to buy those organic. And I eat a whole lot of those. And water, 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 water. We really need water. We're 70% water. All of our organs and systems are very high percentage of water. And if we're dehydrated, those organs and systems aren't working properly, and that includes our brain. And as you can see, there's lots of different benefits to having clean filtered water, and lots of it. I know that a lot of people don't like to drink water because it's boring, and I get that. But I drank several, this is like 750 mils of water, about 3 a day of these. I'll put in lemon juice, or just some slices of cucumber in the summertime. There's lots of different things that you can do to drink the water. Teas, herbal teas are also an option, and different things that aren't caffeinated and loaded with sugar. Fruits, and if you're eating fruits and vegetables, you are getting a certain amount of water in there as well. Just make sure you're drinking lots of water, especially if we're cleansing and detoxifying. We really need that water. So as I said earlier, our skin is 50% of our body weight, and we do release a lot of toxins through our pores if our pores are open to do that. So dry brushing, if anyone knows what that is, you're basically taking a natural brush, bristle brush, and you're brushing your body, starting at your feet, working up your legs, upwards towards your heart, several times all around. You start on your hands and arms and do the same thing, and then you go downward from your neck downward to your heart, and that really starts to open the pores. It gets rid of the dry cells on your skin. And it also stimulates the lymphatic system, which is the lymphatic system. We need a healthy lymphatic system to help to eliminate the pathogens and toxins that we want out of our system. And to do that, we need to drink lots of water. Lymphatic drainage massage, which is basically just any good full body massage, will get the lymphatic system moving and start to get things moving. The lymphatic system does not have its own system to move. It relies on our movements, and there's things we can do like rebounding. And if you don't have a rebounder, you can sit on one of those balls that people use to sit in chairs, the big inflated ones for exercises, and bounce on that for 5 to 10 minutes. Or you can sit on the edge of your bed, or if you're watching TV on the net and a jump, but just lightly bounce, and that gets the lymphatic system moving. And we really want that moving. With us being at computers so much more than usual, even doing that at a computer is a good idea here and there when you think about it. Epsom salt baths are really good for detoxifying as well. We want to, again, make sure we drink lots of water. Whenever we're cleansing, detoxifying, we need the water to flush those toxins out, because if we have it all ready to release, but we're not drinking the water to flush it out through urine and feces or sweating, then we're just keeping all of those toxins inside our bodies. So to really do a deep cleanse, we want to get down to the cellular level, which is our cells. So this is where fasting is a great way to do that. And it seems very frightening for a lot of people to do fasts. And that's why intermittent fasting is a great way to get started before you ever do a 1 or 2 day fast. Intermittent fasting is very easy, and it's easy to incorporate into our lifestyle. For those who have done water fasts or juicing fasts, if you're juicing organic greens and other produce and drinking lots of water in between, because you still, when you're juicing, still have to have the water to push through the toxins. Or if you do a raw food fast, I did a raw food fast when I was in school, where you ate just a lot of only raw food for, I think I did it for 30 days. It's a lot easier to do those, I find, in the summertime when the produce is more readily available, cheaper, and I just tend to crave those foods more, whereas in the winter, I want heavier foods. And again, that's where intermittent fasting really comes in. So what is intermittent fasting? It's quite simply just a cycle of eating and not eating. Typically, people kind of settle into a fasting of 16 hours and they eat in an 8-hour period. So that sounds kind of scary, but it's really not, because you're including the time that you're sleeping. So for example, here you're showing if my last meal or snack before in the evening was at 8 o'clock in the evening, and I don't eat anything until the next day, I go around the clock to 8 o'clock the next morning, I've already fasted essentially 12 hours. And then if I fast for every hour that I fast more, then it's 13, 14, 15, 16 hours I've fasted if I don't have my first meal until noon. And it's going to be noon soon. And I haven't eaten anything yet. I'll have a shake at lunchtime. I've been drinking lots of water, and I find that that's really easy for me. If people work night shifts or have different schedules, then they can adapt the time for them. That's one of the things that's great about intermittent fasting, is that it is very flexible. You can do it when you're traveling. It's actually very economical. I find I only really eat 2 meals a day now, and they're good meals. My shake is so loaded with so many good nutrients, and I make sure to have a good, healthy meal at dinner time. And I may or may not have something to eat in between that. I might have a snack around 3 or 4, and then have my dinner at 6 or 7. But I am always full. I'm satisfied, and I make sure to eat good, nutrient-dense foods. And there are a lot of benefits to intermittent fasting. It does the same thing as keto, but without following a keto diet, where it starts to trigger fat burning. It helps to reduce blood pressure, reduces, of course, inflammation, which causes joint and muscle pain. Really takes the burden off of the digestive system. If you're having lots of digestive issues, not eating for 16 hours gives that digestive system a rest. And there's lots of other benefits as well. Improves mental and emotional health, which we really need these days to help manage our stress levels. Gives us lots of energy. I find I have an incredible amount of energy, and the girls at work, they see me bouncing around, and they're in their 20s and 30s, and here I am 60, and I have more energy than them, and they're like, wow, where do you get all this energy? And it is, I really believe, since I started doing the intermittent fasting, it has been a total game changer for me. You would think that not eating would make you feel sluggish, but as long as I'm drinking my water with lemon juice, and I do put a little salt in there because that's really good for the brain as well, and hydration, I'm good to go. There are also days where I don't do intermittent fasting. My body's telling me, I'm hungry today. I'm going to eat more, or I'm going to have 3 meals today, or I'm not going to wait until noon. I listen to my body. It's always important to listen to our bodies. So we have to modify intermittent fasting in a way that suits our lifestyle. And Dr. Jason Fung, that's a picture of Dr. Jason Fung here. He is actually a nephrologist. His specialty is kidneys, but he started to work with a lot of diabetics, type 1 and type 2. Obviously, fasting for type 1 diabetics is not recommended. Type 1 diabetics need to eat. But type 2 diabetics can start to use intermittent fasting to lower their blood sugar. And I know I've had several clients who use this and have reversed their type 2 diabetes by changing what they eat and intermittent fasting. He's actually a Canadian doctor in Toronto. He's based in Toronto, and he has lots of great books and information if you're looking for more resources. Intermittent fasting helps to repair and heal the immune system and triggers what's called autophagy, which basically the body is using damaged cells or repairing cells and rebuilding to make new cells. But we do need to be fasting for at least 16 hours for that to kick in. And that's where the age reversing comes in. People have experienced where scars have gone away and different things have happened as a result of intermittent fasting. So as I said, it's not for everyone. Intermittent fasting is definitely a no-no for pregnant women, although women who are, I can't think of the term right now, but they, gestational diabetes have used intermittent fasting, but for no longer than 12 hours because they definitely need to be. Of course, babies and children shouldn't be. Athletes who are training need fuel, so they shouldn't be doing this, although they do. A lot of athletes use intermittent fasting for different reasons. Type 1 diabetics totally need to be eating, so this is not for everyone. I'm almost done this, and then I can have some questions. Eating cycles can be anything like you eat for 12 hours, fast for 12 hours. Fast for 14 hours, eat for 10, 16, and so on and so forth. The patterns vary. It's always up to the individual. You can fast for 5 days and eat normally for 2. It's whatever works for you. And that's what I really like about intermittent fasting. And if you are going to do fasting of any kind, you really need to make sure you're drinking a lot of water. And the more that you start to drink water, the more you start to crave water, and your body starts to crave water. And adding lemon juice or apple cider vinegar is a really great way to really flush those toxins through even more. Just keep in mind that caffeine is loaded, will dehydrate you. And if you're detoxifying, or you're doing a cleanse and you're drinking coffee, that's caffeine on an empty stomach. That might not be great. Not everybody can manage that very well. And of course, we need to get sleep, and sleep is very difficult these days. Just a quick word on EMFs. Going to bed when you've been watching TV for watching TV and then you go to bed, your brain will not produce melatonin. Your brain needs darkness to produce melatonin, and computer screens, telephone screens, clocks, all kinds of different lights stop your brain from producing melatonin. And if we're not sleeping, we're producing insulin. Our insulin levels go up, and it creates all kinds of, we start to become insulin resistant, which is prediabetes, and it's just a whole cascade of issues. And of course, if we are getting lots of REM sleep, then our brain is detoxifying, because we only detoxify, our organs and systems only detoxify when we are sleeping in that REM state. So getting a good night's sleep is very important. So start the lighting after dinner. Instead of having big bright lights, start having just little night lights around. That stimulates your brain to start to produce the melatonin. If you're really struggling, you can certainly have a supplement. 1 to 3 milligrams is all you need. If you have too high a dose, you'll have trouble waking up in the morning. Magnesium glycinate before going to bed on an empty stomach helps a lot of people. And turning off your electronics at 9 p.m. or sooner, and definitely putting your phone, if you have a phone, beside your bed, put it on airplane mode. It won't affect your alarm, and you won't be getting the emissions from that phone, because just because it's not in use doesn't mean it's not emitting EMFs. Eliminate blue lights if you have any blue lights, and of course, keep your room cool. As I said, the handouts have a lot more information. Trying to cover such a broad subject in a short period of time is pretty challenging, but I have provided lots of information on toxicity, things to do, how to cleanse. I just touched on a few different simple ways to cleanse, but there are many, many, and one of the handouts does cover, I think, 15 different easily on a daily basis. The clean 15 and dirty dozen are included, and more information on how to a 24-hour fast will look like, and some information about getting a better night's sleep. And that is it for me.